Hello everyone, welcome back. This is S.C. Coleman, author, and in this video we're going to be talking about gaining an advantage, or rather the idea of having an advantage. This is in reference to carrying a weapon, say a pistol, right? In old westerns we often hear the saying that every good gunfighter won because they had an advantage. Of course, there's nothing that quite beats practice and hard work and developing the talents, capabilities, and skills. However, when it comes down to it, it is nice to have the proverbial advantage, and one advantage I have developed is in the way of the draw. And when you're drawing your weapon, there's a couple things to focus on. First is, of course, retention. That's what most people focus on. And then after that is the actual smoothness with which you can draw your weapon. But there's a couple things that go into it as well in terms of maintenance. It's nice to have something which also maintains your firearm. It doesn't get gunked up, nothing gets caught, and it has the ability to be kept for a long time, possibly even inevitably or infinitely, right? There's really nothing that can be kept. Everything has a weathering component to it, but I think it would be good to have something that at least maintains the duration of a lifetime, as it were. But there's also other things that go into it, is that whatever you use to store your weapon, especially the one that you carry on yourself, it's extremely important that it doesn't cause buildup of things, and that it stores the weapon specifically to avoid malfunctions. And gunk-induced malfunctions, grime, the pocket lint idea, things like that, right? I've had many experiences with different types of holsters. And so here I'm going to explain where I develop my advantage, and it's in one purpose, one idea alone. The holster insert. Now, you don't hear many people talk about these holster inserts, and as far as I'm aware, I haven't really seen them anywhere. They just make these Kydex plastic bricks. That's what they feel like anyway. And then these really heavy, expensive leather ones with all their design. Functionally speaking, though, they don't serve the purpose of well maintaining the weapon while you're wearing it, and also giving you an advantage in the draw. So this insert I sewed, as you can see here, the seam. This insert is made from felt, and you could really do an insert in almost any variety, but the reason why I chose felt is because it wicks away moisture. And you could actually take this insert and throw it away and put another one in. Felt's not expensive, especially this cheap polyester kind of felt. It does the trick, right? There's a major difference between the retention draw of the weapon with a regular holster versus an insert. So if you put your insert in, and I made this holster as well. This holster is made from leather. If you put in your insert and you put your gun in, there is pretty much no resistance, even when your gun is on your hip, right? And I'll show that in a minute. Now, the other thing about this here is the insert is on the leather side, which actually sort of holds it in, sort of like a Velcro, so to speak. What this does is not only does it preserve the firearm and ensure that there's nothing getting inside of it which could cause malfunctions, but it also gives me an advantage when it comes to the draw, and I'll show you that in a minute. But before that, I want to go into the actual loading of the weapon and the fact that you should familiarize yourself with the weight of your weapon, of whatever you're going to be carrying, and the best way to do that is through the use of snap caps. Now, when it comes to the actual handling of the firearm for drawing practice, I carry a Bersa TPR-9 compact. It carries 13 rounds of 9mm, and these are snap caps. As you can see, you load it just like a regular bullet, and you can safely fire the weapon. See? Safely fire the weapon without obviously killing yourself or someone else, or putting a hole in your wall. See that? So this particular model of Bersa is a hammer-fired design, and I have placed these glow-in-the-dark attachments to the sights, the front and back, if you can see that. I used super glue, and these are the types that you cut off of, you know, those like star constellation glow-in-the-dark things that you put on the wall. This is a glow-in-the-dark grip sleeve right here, and this is camouflage gauze tape. Now, what's interesting about this particular model of firearm, and what I like and chose about it, is that first of all, it is essentially the same as the Sky CPX2, which I do also carry. The difference being that this has an exposed hammer instead of a shrouded one, where you can cock it and give yourself a hair trigger. The other thing that's great about this gun is that, let's say it's got a decocker here that you can use, see. But let's say that you fire your shot, right? And it goes bang. Well, once it slides back and ejects the spent cartridge, it's locked back for follow-up shots. So each follow-up shot's faster than the next one, and it holds 13. It's what I would consider a weapon that was designed by somebody who knows what they're doing, with experience, probably military experience, not the fake-o law enforcement sort of uniformed corporate thugs that are glorified and sanctified, but rather somebody who's been training with these things and knows what they need for practical purposes for dealing with multiple assailants in a more military operator style capacity. That's what this is. This is designed on both sides equally in a way that it would work for both left-handed and right-handed shooters, other than, of course, this side for taking the slide off. However, the great thing about this that I like is that its capacity of 13 and the follow-up shots and all the different thought that was put into it, it's very utilitarian. It's heavier. It's not like the people who love striker-fired pistols and all that stuff, but it's extremely effective, very utilitarian, very rugged, and it will get the job done. And so far, I have had no issues with it. And a lot of people like to talk about Bersa. So now we're going to go ahead and get into the actual drawing demonstration portion and how to practice. Now, when it comes to the actual drawing of the weapon itself, it's important to practice scenarios which you are likely to encounter. And because nowadays you have so much suppression, and these environments require you to be obedient and never train anything, it's important to do this in a capacity and in a place where you can't be interrupted. Because if you try to do this in like a park, or if you try to do this out in the open, unless of course you live out in the boondocks and the boonies or whatever, not the boondocks, but out in the boonies, out in the place where nobody really lives and nobody cares, right? You can probably get away with it. If you're in the middle of a city, then you're probably going to get harassed and disrupted, and people are going to start getting, you won't have the environment required to actually focus. The first thing you need to do is practice draw from sitting. Very important. Very few people practice drawing from sitting. And to start with, you don't go fast, okay? You start slow and methodical. You come here, pull your shirt, put your hand on the weapon, and slowly draw it out. Now you see what I did here is I drew my holster with my gun, because I put my finger on the holster. And that is a mistake that could be problematic, obviously, in a real situation. But when it comes to this, the idea of going slow, you can work on these little aspects. All right, so let's try it again. I'm sitting here and I pull my shirt, reach down, slowly pull it up, and then from here, you determine which way you're going to go. If you're going to say, bam, and then you rack it, put it back, put my shirt back down, it's cocked. And then I do it again. Bam. Right? And then you rack it. And each time you're counting the rounds and you're feeling them be ejected, you are feeling the operation of the firearm. You're feeling the weight of it. You're feeling how it moves. Sort of like when you test drive a car, or when you drive your car, you feel the rhythm, you understand where the pedal goes, you feel the vibrations, right? That's what you're looking for here. You're feeling for the weight, the way it moves, the handles, and the vibrations of it when it ejects and does all of its cycle of operations. So here, if I was going to do it quickly, right, that's not that quick. But it's not really about speed, it's about smoothness. There's a common saying at the range in the Marine Corps, which applies pretty much everywhere, which is that slow is smooth and smooth is fast. If you get hooked up on something, it causes a disruption in your mind. If the whole thing's a smooth transition, your mind is like the surface of a lake. There's no change, right? And the same thing with practicing these things. If there's a smooth transition, and I just did again, pulled my holster with my thumb or my finger. And that's just a bad habit that I have. It's not always that I do it. But either way, that's an example of a disruption where it will affect you. Right? If you have a disruption, say like I'll do it here. I'll get my gun caught on my shirt. See that? I grip my shirt. That's a disruption. That's not smooth. So if you rush and you try to go quickly, you'll get all those disruptions. So it's important to do both speeds. It's important to do it slow and important to do it fast. Because that way you can feel for the disruptions that you may be prone to using or doing that will affect you. And it's similar to, of course, any type of holster or any type of thing that you're carrying, or even with knives or whatnot. Whatever it is, it's all the same type of rule. Now, what everybody else also practices is drawing from standing. Yeah, just about everybody does that one, right? The drawing from standing. However, another and important way to practice drawing is lying down. And you see, I just did it again. Now, another thing that you can do is that if you have a habit of doing disruptions, which is what I just showed there, you can follow through on the movement and compensate for that disruption. So what I did is I just pulled the holster off, right? So I'll do it again. I pulled my holster and pulled it off. And that will train you to compensate for those styles of disruption.